Now, as expected, opinions are sharply divided over this action. Well, joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Matthew RJ Brodsky, Senior Fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy, and Negar Mortazavi, journalist and political analyst and host of the Iran podcast. And Negar, on your lively Twitter feed the last few days, you say this action was a dangerous provocation and a blow to future diplomacy. Why is that?
I think so. It's not just me saying. We've heard from multiple senior Democrats here in Washington. I think the reason for this killing seems to be a lot more political than actually related to Iran's nuclear program. And it's clear that it's either trying to provoke Iran into taking a retaliatory action, something violent and fatal, and be pulled into a broader military conflict with the U.S. or give the pretext for further attacks on Iran to the Trump administration in the final weeks in office, or basically tie the hands of the incoming Biden administration in future diplomacy and negotiations with Iran, which is what President-elect Biden has signaled he's ready and will prioritize to do.
All right. Well, Matthew, Negar says there were more political reasons than security factors involved in this act, whether it was Israel or not. How do you respond to that?
Look, I think the fact is Biden has made no secret about the fact that he wants to get back in the nuclear deal. The Democrats and those who served with Obama frankly believed that the deal actually worked and prevented them from getting nuclear weapons. So they've convinced themselves of that. They've constantly told the media that, and the media in general in the United States parrots what the old Team Obama people say. So the fact is, he wants to get back in the deal. If that's going to be the case, then of course, other countries, the United States, apparently with Israel, carried out an attack a few weeks ago against an al-Qaeda operative inside of Iran. This is the type of thing one can expect if a Biden administration is going to come in and revive the Obama playbook, which is to downgrade relations with Israel and support having a warmer relation or strategic realignment toward the regime in Tehran. You could see this, incidentally, with how Israel struck at Iranian assets inside of Syria. They picked up dramatically after Trump came in office, because Trump understands that Israel is America's greatest ally in the region, not the regime in Tehran.
Well, Negar, I want you to respond. I'm not sure the answer also you justified why it is dangerous. You did lay out your reasons for it, but Matthew's argument is going back into the Iran nuclear deal is actually the more dangerous course. So how do you respond to that?
Well, we've seen in the past 4 years with maximum pressure, basically President Trump's strategy, that not only it didn't limit Iran's nuclear program any further than the Iran deal did, it actually, the result of it is Iran violating even the terms of the nuclear deal, now having more enriched uranium and basically moving beyond the restrictions that were placed by the JCPOA. So the maximum pressure has been maximum failure in the past 4 years. And now the only course of action would be to go back to diplomacy, to go back to the Iran deal, and basically try to convince the Iranians to make these concessions and abide by the limitations on the nuclear program, which they agreed to in 2015. And it's not just the United States or the Obama administration. It's U.S.'s closest allies in Europe. It was Russia, China. It was a multilateral agreement supported by the United Nations Security Council. So unraveling that deal hasn't made the region safer, hasn't made U.S. allies safer, and it's just been a maximum failure, I think. And the same crowd who's been promoting that maximum failure strategy, it seems like, are trying to sabotage future path to diplomacy for
Matthew,
the Biden
the argument is one of effectiveness. These kind of covert operations and the sanctions just are simply not any more effective, or even less so, Negar says, than the Iran nuclear deal. How do you respond?
Well, we would have known more if Trump were to have been reelected, because the fact is, John Kerry, you have Team Obama's team, came out after Trump was elected in office and was trying to convince Javad Zarif, and Mahmoud Abbas for that matter, to just wait out the Trump administration. These were people who were so sure that their horrible nuclear deal would work. And of course, we have to be clear on the record, Iran was cheating before the Trump administration pulled out of the deal. They certainly picked up their pace more recently, but you can hear in the sheer weakness of the policy she proposes, which is we should get back in the deal and then try to get Iran to abide by some of these things. The commitments they made don't actually prevent them from getting a nuclear deal. One thing that Iran knows is that if they were to try to break up, not just tinker around the edges as they have been doing, if they try to break out, Trump would have a military response against the regime in Tehran. The Obama administration took that off the table before they were negotiating.
I want to go back to Negar because you're posing something, Negar, which is that for any strategy to work, there has to be a credible military or security response, and actions such as this show that at least be it the U.S. or Israel would go that far.
Look, so if we want to go down the path of another, because striking Iran is not like you can just strike Iran. Striking Iran means a broad military conflict in the region that would probably be much more disastrous than Iraq. If that's something Matthew or anyone else is proposing, I don't think the American public is on board. I don't even think the Israeli public is on board. Let's not forget the Israeli security establishment supported the implementation of the nuclear deal because they thought that would make Israel and the region even safer if Iran agrees, which they did, to put limitations on the nuclear program. The IAEA has reported multiple times that Iran was abiding by the deal until the Trump administration pulled out and then created the chaos that we're in the past year. We've seen so many incidents, so many intensifying of the tensions in the region, and that just doesn't make anybody
I'm afraid we are going to have to end the discussion here, but I suspect this is a debate that we'll be hearing quite a lot of in the next weeks, months, and perhaps even years. Negar Mortazavi, Matthew RJ Brodsky, thank you for joining.